President Trump saying Hamas will completely disarm and give up control of the war-torn territory to a new Palestinian government. The BBC is reporting Hamas is expected to release its own statement soon. The plan also calling for Israeli troops to withdraw as well. News Nation Washington correspondent Corey Smith is live at the White House. Corey, talk about an overnight development here. This is the next step of that historic deal that the president brokered between the two sides months ago.
Yeah, that's right, Marky. This is the roadmap for implementing phase 2 of that 20-point peace plan President Trump unveiled last year. That peace plan led to the ultimate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and the creation of this Board of Peace. So U.S. and Board of Peace officials say it took 8 months to put this all together. Delicate negotiations, delicate discussions, and they say Hamas and Palestinian factions within Gaza have agreed to implement this plan. Now, look, many questions, a lot of uncertainty, chiefly on the part of the Israelis, remain, but the White House is calling this a historic breakthrough. Here's President Trump in his own words. He wrote on Truth Social, "This agreement is a critical step towards Gaza finally being governed by a new Palestinian government that will work closely with the Board of Peace to help the Palestinian people. At the same time, Israel will have the security it deserves, with Gaza no longer used as a base for terror attacks." So let's walk you through this. In a briefing with reporters Thursday, U.S. officials outlined each phase of this plan, and it starts with a very big top-line demand. Hamas must completely disarm and relinquish governance of Gaza over to a United Nations-backed group of independent Palestinian experts. A new Palestinian police force would oversee security in the area. And as disarmament proceeds and security conditions are met, Israel would then begin the phased withdrawal of its forces. Now, a U.S.-led international stabilization group would be the peacekeepers while all this unfolds. As you might expect, Israel very skeptical Hamas and the other militias operating in Gaza will give up their weapons. U.S. officials say they met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, told him, look, their intention was to hold Israel to the commitments outlined in that September 20-point plan. As one U.S. official put it, the goal here is to avoid future wars. Marky?
And we know that many hurdles, conditions, and timelines still remain here, so we'll monitor this closely and see if any new developments come from Camp David later this weekend as well. Corey Smith, live from the White House. Thank you so much. Now to this.
Listen to the American people. Vote to end this war, and we're going to keep forcing Republicans to vote until you do.
Senate Democrats force another vote to end military action against Iran. And again, it fails short, even as they vow to press the issue. It caps off a week of back-and-forth strikes between the U.S. and Iran, with dozens of Iranian sites hit and American allies in that region targeted. But there are growing worries that the U.S. is running out of firepower, with new analysis showing a dramatic drop in munitions needed to stop Iranian attacks. News Nation national correspondent Brooke Schaefer has the details for us. Brooke, I think the big question on a lot of people's minds is America's military might in trouble here?
That, of course, the major question this morning. Marky, good morning to you. Military leaders have reportedly warned President Trump that the state of our munitions stockpile could impact operations in Iran. A military official who spoke with the Associated Press anonymously said that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, raised those concerns to the president recently. A Washington think tank, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, reported this week Iranian attacks have required extensive use of interceptors in air defense, potentially impacting U.S. military readiness, saying diminished stockpiles may force the United States and its coalition partners to take more risks with interceptions. Now, we reached out to the Pentagon about this. They told us in part America's military is the most powerful in the world and has everything it needs to execute, adding the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people.
The challenge is we've been engaged with a stiff opponent or adversary with Iran. We've had to expend a number of our Patriot missiles and our THAAD systems in order to protect American forces. It really comes down to really managing that risk. Should the president decide, rather, that he wants to go back to major combat operations?
Now, the White House also maintains the U.S. has more munitions than it needs and told News Nation defense companies are at this moment making more than have ever been made before. The Washington Post reports the Department of War is right now leaning on Silicon Valley defense entrepreneurs to help make munitions quickly. And meantime, the Wall Street Journal reports the military has prepared an option for 2 weeks of intensive airstrikes against Iran, despite these reports of a dwindling stockpile. Marky.
Brooke, thank you. For more on this, let me bring in one of the authors of that Center for Strategic and International Studies report, CSIS Senior Advisor, retired Marine Corps Colonel Mark Cancian. Colonel, happy Friday morning to you, sir. Thank you. Let me just crunch some of these numbers according to your analysis. The number of Patriot interceptors before the war was 2,330. It's now estimated to have between 759 and 827. How bad is that?
Well, that's a very large reduction, and the problem is that this is being used heavily in the war against Iran. It would also be used very heavily in a war in the Western Pacific if we ever had a conflict with China. And it's that latter situation that has the Pentagon very worried. All of the munitions that we've expended are now at much lower levels. Even before the war, they were lower than many experts desired for a war in the Western Pacific. Now they're even lower. So I'm sure that what the military has said is that there's a lot of risk here.
Yeah. Let me get to the China aspect that you just brought up in just a second. But the White House says more of these weapons are on the way. You just heard Brooks reporting there. The White House says it has more munitions than it needs. But it's going to take years to replace them. Is it too late at this point? Or how do we fix this problem?
Well, the problem is time, not money. The Biden administration started increasing production of these weapons. The Trump administration continued that with the reconciliation bill and in the 27 budget. The problem is that you can only build so many at a time. We're increasing those production rates. The Trump administration is correct about that, but that takes time. And what we're getting delivered now are the weapons that were ordered in 23 or 24 because it takes several years for them to be delivered.
You know, Colonel, one of the lines that stood out to me from your report, it says that the U.S. and our allies may have to take more risks with interceptions because of the shortage. What kind of risks are we talking about here? I mean, will we have to let some Iranian weapons hit because we don't have enough missiles to shoot them down? Or what do you mean by that?
I think that there are two things that will probably happen, and we hear are actually happening now. One is that the shot doctrine will change. That is, we won't fire as many Patriots at a target, and that increases the risk that a missile will get through. But the other one is that when we watch the trajectory of a Iranian missile and see that it's going to hit some place that maybe is remote or not particularly sensitive, that we might have to let it go through.
Taking us back to China that you brought up just a moment ago, your report also says this shortage could open the door for China to attack Taiwan. How real of a possibility is that? You know, now you have all of this public reporting that says we have a lack in munitions. How are, you know, adversaries across the world reading into this reporting?
Well, the Chinese can do this analysis themselves, and I'm sure that they've seen the same reductions. The concern is that with this reduction in munitions, they may see an opportunity. It is true that we have alternatives. White House is not wrong that we have a lot of munitions. The problem is that the alternatives are less effective or entail more risk to the platforms. We should keep in mind, too, that there are some offsetting considerations. For example, the demonstrated capabilities of the U.S. military, its skill. We've seen it in Venezuela. We've seen it now in Iran. The Chinese are quite aware that they don't have a lot of military combat experience recently. That may help deter them.
You know, Ukraine has had, you and I have talked about this for a long time. Ukraine has had incredible success with its counter-drone program. I'm curious, instead of buying more of these missiles, should we be investing in new technologies to help fight this war?
What you're seeing is that the U.S. is looking at alternative technologies. Heard in our report there, they're going to Silicon Valley, for example, to buy less expensive munitions. I think what we're going to end up with is a spectrum. There are some threats, some missiles that only a high-end interceptor like a Patriot can be successful with. But there are other missiles where something less expensive would work, and they're looking at less expensive Patriots, and they're also looking at a variety of other less expensive munitions and attack munitions. So I think you end up with a spectrum.
Well, certainly a worrying report and worrying numbers to see, and I appreciate your time in breaking down your analysis for us. Colonel Mark Cancian, everybody, thank you, sir.